this isn't confirmed, and so take it with a grain of salt. I don't know. Okay, yeah, you can see my screen.
Yep.
So this is GPT-5 is reportedly dropping next week, and they're claiming that it's gonna have a 1 million token input window, 100K output tokens, MCP support, parallel tool calls, dynamic short and long reasoning, uses code interpreter and other tools. How do you think GPT-5 is going to compare to Grok 4?
So let's break down each one of these, because one of the biggest things that everybody is going to tell you that GPT-4 flopped, and the reason why is because their hallucination rates were through the roof. Their hallucination rates were reported in the 43%, and that's their own reporting. If you think I'm just bagging on them, that's actually their report said that 43% of their searches came up with hallucinations. So what they're going to do with that very top line, they're continuing to just cast caution to the wind. Their hallucination rates are going to continue to be high. When you just go obscenely large on your input, your hallucination is just going to go out.
And when you
like
say
crazy.
hallucination rate, can you clarify what that means?
So a hallucination is when, so remember how AI works. AI works off of pattern matching. It's not actually thinking. It's just doing pattern matching, or it just takes these mesh of matrices, and it's actually doing search against them to find what's closest as possible. So when it can't find an exact match, it's going to grab the closest thing. Well, the closest thing frequently means it's just making word salad, which usually just it comes up and we call it hallucinations, which is where it just takes stuff and makes it up, right? Most of the times it's nonsensical. A lot of times it'll sound really like, and that's one of the problems with AI is it's super convincing because it sounds really logical, but it actually is completely not factual, right? And that's when you see stuff where you're like, wait, that's totally wrong, right? And so that's the hallucination problem that we're talking about here.
Got it.
So that part here, I'm curious to see if this is true. Again, this is an early report, so it's anybody's best guess. But like, if this is actually the case, it means that most likely OpenAI is still just saying, screw it, we don't care about the hallucination rate. We're just going to go big anyways, right? Grok's hallucination was low, but their token input size wasn't this large.
What does that mean? What does token input window mean and output tokens mean?
So the input means how much it can take in to then reason against, right? And so how many token, a million token input is a huge amount. This means you could dump like an entire encyclopedia into it, have it reason against, and give you 100K token output. Means then how much it can put out, all with like basically kind of one request, right?
And how much is one token? Is that like one query?
So it's really, tokens are really a vague thing. There's a lot of people really hating on the AI sector because they're allowed to hide a lot behind what a token is, right? And so what one person denotes a token, what another person does, even in different topics. So if I'm coding, a token might be a line of code. It could be a function of, a function block. If you're, a writer, it might be a paragraph. It might be a sentence, right? And so a token is really a vague input. And part of the thing that people are starting to see, it's kind of like when you go to the grocery store and the box of cereal costs the same amount, but the box got smaller. This allows them to kind of cheat on the token size a little bit because nobody can really question what a token is, right? It's a really vague metric that they use to basically like kind of give a thought, or it's really a vague, kind of
Totally.
context of measurement. But really where the strength of these large AI systems is that second point, the MCP support, and parallel tools, right? Because that's the ability,
What is MCP support, and like what can you explain like what that means and then why you think it's important?
So MCP stands for model context protocol, right? And so this is how LLMs, the thing that does the reasoning and the logic, connects out to its data sources, right? So if you're going to say a weather and you want to say, hey, give me all the, almanac of the weather and what I think the weather is going to be tomorrow based on previous history, the MCP is what connects the LLM, which may not be trained on all the data of the weather patterns for forever, to connect out to the internet and go get that information. So the MCP is the connector that allows it to connect out to these things. So the parallel tool calls, right? And MCP support and parallel tool calls is a huge part, because then you can actually connect even your own things. So MCP allows me to connect my own things into the system. Again, this is another one of those, an example I use on my channel all the time is like in Jurassic Park, where Malcolm in the original Jurassic Park was like, yelling at the scientists and was like, "You were so excited about the fact that you could build these dinosaurs, you didn't think about whether you should." And this is what actually happens a lot. All the major data breaches are coming in. Every new hack that's come out really in the last 12 months have been from these MCP, because people connect stuff to AI and they don't think about the repercussions of connecting their production database per se. So we recently saw a tool that wiped out somebody's production database, and they made this huge public stink about it. And I'm sitting here thinking, who in the heck would connect their production database to one of these
Yeah.
AI tools? So that's what MCP support is.
Are you talking about the data breach with the driver's licenses?
That's a different one, but that was
Ah,
also because of MCP. Yes.
okay. I would, if you have a second, maybe let's finish this up, and then maybe if we have time, we can dive into that. Okay, so dynamic short and long reasoning.
So there's a lot of skepticisms about reasoning right now, and I'm actually doing a full video on it this week on my channel. And so this to me also shows that he's trying to hit some buzzwords here, because more and more MIT and Harvard and a handful of other have just both recently released papers stating that reasoning doesn't work because of the first problem, the problem with hallucinations. As soon as you get one, so reasoning means chain of thought. It means what it does is it does one LLM process, then it changes it to a second process, then it changes it to a second process. And in the best case scenario, it will work. The problem is when you get any high rate of hallucinations in that first step of processing, the fourth step of processing becomes just terrible, like just horrible, because it's processing against partial hallucinations. And they try to put things in place to detect against the hallucinations in each step to prevent against that, but they can't. Like it doesn't work. And they're showing that reasoning actually is just more of a way for these large places to chew up your tokens, which is what they charge you against. So it's actually a way for them to overcharge you and make it think it's doing better. And so there's a lot of skepticism around the reasoning models right now.
Gotcha. Okay, and then to wrap it up, what's that bottom one? The uses code interpreter and other tools. Like, is that just kind of
Um, so they're trying to go after Claude. They're trying to go after or Claude Code. They're trying to go after Cursor. They're trying to go after Microsoft GitHub Copilot. They're trying to attract the developers. Particularly, I don't know any developers who use ChatGPT. ChatGPT is the worst one. So for everybody within the sound of my voice, go use one of the other systems. I'm a fan of Claude. I like Gemini Pro. Any of these, but OpenAI is desperately losing the corporate battle and the developer battle. They're losing both of those, and they know it. So they're going to try to continue to go after this. Their coding tools benchmark dead last in pretty much every single test I've ever seen.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, I'm excited to hear your ChatGPT 5 review, and stack it against Grok 4 to kind of see what we get.